All right. Hi, Joey. Happy Thursday. If you're watching this on Thursday, this is the Thursday lesson. And in the previous video, we talked about the different kinds of angles and how they're measured on the rotation around a circle in degrees. And so we started with right angles, which are exactly 90 degrees, acute angles, which are less than 90 degrees, and obtuse angles, which are more than 90 degrees. So the tool that we use to measure angles, if we want to get actual specific measurements and not just classify them as acute or whatever, is called a protractor. And you've probably seen this before. It is a half circle. So thinking about that rotation on the circle, if we were to go all the way around the half circle, that means a half turn, which would just be a straight line, which is 180 degrees. But a protractor has some different elements. Along the bottom is just a straight edge with a 6-inch ruler built in. And in this inner edge is a straight edge with centimeters. So if you wanted to just measure the length of something small, you could do that. The round part is what you're going to measure your angles with in degrees. You'll notice that there are two different scales. There's an inner scale that starts here at 0, 20, and then along the end. And then it goes to 170, but technically it goes to 180. You just don't see it. Now, from there, you can look on the outside and see an outer scale, but it's going in the opposite direction. On the inner scale, 170 was on this side, and on the outer scale, 170 is here, and it goes backwards. They both have 90 in the same spot, but then it goes back. That's because you're going to see angles that open in different ways. Sometimes an angle might open out this way, but sometimes it opens out that way, and so you have to measure it based on that. Sometimes if you're ever confused about which scale you should be using, just think about what type of angle it is. So for example, if you were measuring an acute angle, which you know is less than 90, it would not make sense to use the outer numbers and say like, oh, it measures 130. You would be using the correct ones, depending on which way it opened. Maybe you would use the inner numbers. But you know that if it's acute, the number you should get would be less than 90. So would 60 or 120 make sense? And we'll do some examples here. So in your colorful book, just a quick glance at that. Page 224 gives you kind of the rundown on measuring. It talks about how the unit we use is degrees, because a circle is 360 degrees. So every little mark you make is 1/3, 360th degrees of a circle, because each unit angle measures 1 degree. But yeah, just no degrees. Protractor is the tool I just showed you. You use a protractor to measure an angle, and place the center of your protractor on the end point of the rays that form the angle. And I'll show you that on the one that you're going to use. So those endpoints, remember, it's a shared endpoint. That's where you're going to place it. And then you're going to do some lining up. Down here it says line up one ray with 0 degrees on the protractor. Then find the tick mark on the protractor that aligns with the second ray of the angle. So in this case, the one that they did, so they have the center of the protractor on the end point. They lined up the bottom ray on 0, and then can see that it opened up then to 60 degrees. So this measures 60 degrees. So yeah. So over here, you can see some different angles that you would use your protractor with. And it's kind of hard for me to do this because I don't want to write in the book. So I'm just going to make up some angles on my paper and show you how to measure them. So let's say I have an angle endpoint. It's opening out this way and this way, okay? So on the protractor, the center part is going to be where this hole is, right there. You'll see that, like I can even stick my pen through it, like that, okay? So you're going to line up your endpoint, that shared endpoint, in that hole. So I place that on there. Now next, do you see this straight line going through that hole? You want to place that line on the bottom ray. So I'm going to angle this more. I want to get this black line sitting on top of the purple. So I'm going to turn it, turn it, turn it, there. So now I've got the hole on the end point, and then that black line is in line with my purple line, okay? So now I just need to see what it opens to. Now sometimes the lines that they're going to give us in the pictures, they don't extend all the way up to the protractor. So one thing you can do is line up your straight edge on one of the rays, like this, as much as you can, and just extend it out even further on the page, like that. It doesn't change the measurement, it just makes it easier. Okay, so once again, I'm going to put this on here, line up that black line, and now I can see that this measures either between 60 and 70 degrees or between 110 and 120. Now, looking at this angle, I can tell it has not opened up all the way to 1/4 of a turn, 1/4 of a turn on a circle. It is less than 90 degrees. So it is not going to make sense for me to use these outer numbers. It doesn't make sense for it to measure between 110 and 120 if it's less than 90. So that means I'm going to use the inner measurements. And just kind of estimating, it's a little bit more than halfway to 70. So I would say maybe this one is like 66. But I can also use these out ones up here. And that's like the halfway point. So it actually kind of is about halfway between. I think I'm going to go with 66 degrees approximately. Okay. I'll draw another angle. So I'm going to have this one opening up out this way. And go like that. Okay. Now just looking at this, I can tell this is an obtuse angle. It is more than 90 degrees. It has opened up more than 1/4 of a turn on the circle. Okay. All right, so we're going to go through the same steps, even though it's opening out the other way. Again, maybe you want to extend this just so it's a little bit longer. So line up your straight edge like this. Extend it out a little bit. But I'm going to put that hole onto the end point like that. I'm going to make sure that this line is more lined up on it like that. That's pretty good. If I don't bump it. There. And now I can see it's out here. Now I could be using my inner numbers between 40 and 50, but again, that doesn't make sense because we've already said this is going to be more than 90. So that tells my brain I need to use the outside numbers. So it's between 130 and 140, and I can kind of use these marks out here. So like if this is 140, one mark before that then is like 139. So this measures 139 degrees. Okay. All right, so then if I was to measure the ones in my book, or if you were to do that, let me arrange things here. So like, okay, I'm going to place the end point. It's a little hard on the book. Place the end point, line up the lines, and you can see, like, see how it doesn't go very far? This line right here. This is where I'm saying if you wanted to use your straight edge and like extend it out onto the page, you could. But if I was to do that, get this lined up. This one, if I was to imagine it going, it's definitely obtuse, so it doesn't make sense to say it's 10 degrees. So I would use this number. It's approximately 170 degrees. Okay. This one I know is acute. It is less than 90. So I would line up my end point. Line up that line on there. Again, I could kind of extend it out. In this case, if I was to envision that top line going out, it doesn't seem like it would cross right at 10 degrees. I'd be a little bit before it, so maybe like 8 degrees. You can see that. And so on and so on. Okay, so the next part then is drawing an angle based on the measurement they give you. So let me show you how to do that. So like this one, they want us to draw 58 degrees, okay? So let me grab a new piece of paper and my protractor. Close, there it is. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I know I have to have a bottom ray, right? So I'm going to use my straight edge and I'm just going to draw a straight line. And I'm going to put a little arrow on it and I'm going to put an endpoint on it. Okay, the book wanted me to draw at 58 degrees, draw an angle that's 58 degrees. So I'm going to do just like I would if I was measuring. I'm going to put this on my endpoint, line that line right there up, Okay. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to find 58 degrees. I'm going to use the inner angle, the inner edge, because I know it's going to be acute, and I always just tend to open up this way. It's my habit. You could open up the other way, but just be aware of what you're marking. It wouldn't make sense to mark the 58 degrees right here, because then if I was to join that, that'd be an obtuse angle. So anyways, back to this. So 58 degrees, here's 50, here's 60. I'm going to use this, so like 55, 56, 57, 58. So I'm going to put like a little mark right there, okay? And then I would just use my straight edge, line up my endpoint and that mark I made, draw a line, put an arrow on it, woohoo, 58 degrees. Another one in the book, number 7, said to make one that is 95 degrees. All right, so again, just start by throwing down a bottom edge using the straight edge. Again, my preference, I always just open up this way, but I'll try and go this way. So I'll put an endpoint this side, arrow on this side. So lining up, 95 degrees is going to be more than a right angle, more than 90 degrees. So that means that's obtuse. So here's 90. And I'm going to use my outside numbers because I'm opening up this way. So like 95 would be right about there, because here's 90 and 100. Okay, use my straight edge, connect, connect. And I don't have to draw all the way up to that endpoint. I could just draw it right here. It's still fine. And then there's one that's 90 degrees. So I'll do one more. I'll do one that's 30. So again, just draw a line. Put an arrow, put an endpoint. I'm going to open up this way. So I'm going to line up, put this on. It's acute, so I'm going to use my inside numbers because I'm opening up this way. 30's right there. Put a little mark. Straight edge to endpoint and mark. Draw the line. Put an arrow. Voila, 30 degrees. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. And then in your book for your assignment on page 159, you're going to have to use your straight edge to extend these out, because when you put your protractor on it, it's not going to reach all the way up there. So just don't be afraid to use the straight edge and like draw up through the words. That's okay. And then just write your measurement down here. Don't forget to put the little degree sign. And then on the back, and also pay attention, if it's an acute angle, your measurement should be less than 90. If it's obtuse, then the number should be more than 90. So check yourself. Like, it would not make sense for this one down here to measure like 110 degrees because it's teeny tiny. Okay, and then on the back, it's drawing. So, you know, throw the little straight edge bottom down, make your marks, and go. All right, hopefully this makes sense. Protractors are fun. The kids usually really enjoy this lesson each year that I teach it. So enjoy playing with the protractor, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.